Bianca Valentine from the Tshwaranang Legal Advocacy Centre. Bianca, it's good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah, you know, it's so difficult to sit and have a conversation about this and to almost say you're proudly South Africa, where we sit at #1 when it comes to rapes out of 120 Interpol countries. You know, what is the problem? Where are we going wrong?
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer, but I mean, if you think about it, we are #1 on reported rapes. That's only a fraction of the amount of rapes that actually occur in our country. There are countless amounts of women and children and even men who do not report rape for one or other reason. And unfortunately, we're sitting in a society in which the level of violence against women and children are just, it's skyrocketing. And organizations like ours and the Shukumisa campaign are advocating for steps to be taken, not just legally, but socially, to eradicate this problem.
Yeah. So now we see the introduction of more courts, the sexual offences courts that are going to be coming in the country. Now, just talk us through this. How is this going to help the situation, in your opinion?
Well, in essence, what it is supposed to be doing and what has been structured in the report of the ministerial task team is that these courts are going to be specialized courts. So what we're envisaging basically is that they are going to be trained, skilled and equipped, not just in terms of facilities, but in terms of prosecutors, magistrates and investigators. So the entire system from start to end is going to be victim-centered.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the victim's rights is going to be at the center of all investigations, so that when you have a victim who's brave enough to come forward and report the rape or the sexual offense, that victim is not re-victimized by the system. And that at the end of the day, it's a complete approach to the victim and what the trauma that the person has endured.
What about sentencing, and convictions? Because that's the crux at all of this is the conviction rate in South Africa for rapists. You know, how is that?
Look, at the end of the day, if you look at the statistics behind courts like the Wynberg court, that was the first sexual offences court that completely facilitated the process and had what the MPA structured as the blueprint, which had the two prosecutors who were specialised, magistrate who was dedicated and served only in that court with a role specifically dedicated to sexual offences. The conviction rate was higher. So what we are envisaging is when you're implementing these courts and you are structuring it to facilitate everything that should be in the court. For example, the CCTV cameras, the intermediaries to assist victims in terms of the statements or the testimony in court, as well as the prosecutors who are actually trained in the entire process and who are victim-centered, that the conviction rate is going to be higher. But at the end of the day, there's a joint intersectoral collaboration starting from investigations, and investigators who are actually trained detectives within the system to actually look at how the investigation should progress, so that you don't have matters that are thrown out of court simply because, one, there's insufficient evidence, but also looking at when medical examinations are conducted, that the medical examiner is actually skilled and trained to actually conduct the medical exam, but also to complete the necessary forms that are going to be submitted to court.
Is this going to make a difference, the reintroduction of sexual offences courts? Do you think this will scare offenders?
If it is implemented correctly, then yes, it should. But I mean, you're looking at an overall approach from beginning at the investigation stage, but looking at the socio and the legal aspects of it, so that victims and their rights are protected. So you're looking at an entire process. So if it is implemented as it is structured currently, and you look at past experiences, looking at the Wynberg and the Soweto blueprint of what sexual offences court should look like, then in theory, yes.
But it's the implementation that worries you.
It's the implementation, the effective, efficient implementation, and the skilling and the facilitation of these courts that will ultimately lead to that impact. But if you're not going to implement it correctly and you're not going to look at the overall structure, then the court is just going to be a skeleton.
All right. Well, let's just hope that this all happens. Bianca Valentine, thank you very much for talking to us here on Morning Live. Bianca is from the Tshwarang Legal Advocacy Centre, and we're talking about the sexual offences courts that have been reintroduced into South Africa. 22 courts that are going to be opening that are entirely dedicated to sexual offences across the country. Eventually there will be 57 of them, and this is just absolutely frightening when you live in a country that this is what you have to deal with. But when you've got stories that we run in the news, this is something that's needed in the country. If you'd like to comment, you know how to get hold of us. Please do. We'd love to hear from you.